he just went low. He's in his head. He's in his head. He's open. His head wide open. Cracked open in the face.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mario Mentos 100 back again with another episode of How's My Team. We've got a bit to talk about. One thing I didn't actually mention last week was the Australia Cup going back up again. Some of the round 32 matches had been played already, but the Wanderers obviously had played the other night at the time of recording this. They played on Tuesday night, so we'll have to talk about that, obviously, for that. But obviously, we've got the Titans women against the Cowboys women's team. We've got the Titans against the Dragons. We've got the Giants in a big, important clash in the Sydney Derby against the Sydney Swans. And yeah, we've got the Cubs as well to talk about, obviously, against the Detroit Tigers. And then obviously that big block of games starting with the Pirates as well, Pittsburgh Pirates. So decent amount to talk about. Obviously, we got a few things to talk about in terms of Liverpool as well. They've just signed, both the men's and women's teams have signed on new contracts for new players and stuff like that. So we got a lot to talk about. So let's get started with the episode. Alright, Sunday, obviously went to the game yesterday. Let's start with the clunker in the Giants and the Swans in the Sydney Derby, and the Swans won against the Giants by 51 points, 139 to 88, 21 goals 13 to 13 goals 10. And the only real positive thing I can say about this game in particular is the fact that our scoring accuracy was much better in this game than last week's game. But in saying that, still missed quite a lot. And in fact, Sydney were quite dominant pretty much all over the park. The movement, ball movement in terms from the team in general was much faster. Our defense was nowhere near where it should have been, and it was pretty pitiful in that. Obviously, we're trying to dispose from the back half into our forward half, and a lot of the times the backs and some of the midfield players just got stuck and kept turning the ball over. It was not ideal. Lots of free kicks to Sydney as well. 23 to 16 it ended up being at the end, but it was quite a lot that felt like that went in the favour of Sydney Swans, despite there not being that much in the game at all. Obviously, they did try to give the Giants a few calls in the end of it. Apparently, we led in turnovers. Oh, actually, no, we actually didn't. Yeah. We intercepted 58 times compared to 56 intercepts, but they got 58 turnovers compared to 56 in our favour. But yeah, in terms of the defence, it was pretty average. Quite a lot of marks for the Giants in particular, 111 to 62, but we didn't lead the game at all. And the biggest lead was 61 points. With about probably 10 minutes left or so. In fact, I actually left the game with my dad with about 10 minutes to go. We pretty much had enough at that point in time. It was pretty bad in terms of everything. The effort was not there. It definitely showed in the fact that, in general, it was not great from the Giants at all. They got more shots on goal, obviously. They got 23 scoring shots in general compared to last week. But again, obviously Sydney had been under pressure the last couple of weeks and lost a couple. Obviously losing to Adelaide last week, and then obviously losing to Fremantle the week before. So they're on a bit of the slide. But obviously, Sydney derby, they were up for it. Obviously, yes, we had some injuries as well. Obviously, Toby Green obviously being the big one. But the players on field just didn't have an effort. And we'll say, obviously, Connor Idun as the captain of the team, obviously, since Toby Green was out for this game with a quad injury. Not the worst decision. I would have thought it went to Lockie Whitfield, but in terms of experience, but obviously Iden getting the call, big call in that, and I think that Onley kind of does deserve it. He has been there at the club for a long time, and he does a lot of great effort in terms of playing and trying to do his best and in the defense, but he was a little bit absent, like Finn Callahan and a few other players as well on the field. I think Finn might have been one that was obviously tagged, because obviously, if you remember from last year's derby at NG Stadium, obviously he was one of the big instigators of that comeback, especially in the third quarter for the Giants. So obviously they tagged him this game, and they kind of did tag him in the first game this year as well at the Sydney Cricket Ground, but obviously to varying effect. In terms of goal scorers for the game, 3 goals, 1 to Stephen Cornelio. He kind of fit in the role of where Toby Green would be on the field, and it was almost like for like in terms of how he got free and got a few marks to score some of those goals. It very much felt like a Toby play each time. So him top scoring, not necessarily the best thing, especially when you've got obviously in terms of forwards, Aaron Cadman, Jake Stringer, and obviously Max Grueski, and then obviously Callum Brown coming in as well into that forward line. It's a bit hard, excuse me. It's a bit of a weird situation, the fact that Stephen Cornelio is the guy that scored the most goals. Ryan Angwin, 2 goals straight. Aaron Cadman, 1 goal, 1. Jake Stringer got on the board with a goal. Obviously missed one earlier the previous quarter, but he ended up hitting around the corner and actually got a goal out of it. I think he was very nervous as well after obviously last week's performance in kicking 0 and 7. There was a few situations where he actually passed it off to other people to score goals. So his confidence is a bit shot at the moment. I think he's just trying to do the thing in trying to help this team, and I don't mind that. There was a couple of situations where he probably could have kicked some goals as well. Callum Brown got one. Clayton Oliver also got a goal as well. I think he might have scored that when I was actually out of the ground and had already left. So, so I think that was a goal that I did miss. But Connor Stone ended up getting one. Joe Fonte got one. Max Grueski also got one as well. And Xavier Halloran ended up scoring. I think I actually scored the first goal that we ended up scoring all game. We were under a lot of pressure. Harry Thomas got it behind, and Jenna Laverde got into a scuffle with Charlie Curnow. Got hit pretty hard, pretty high, and then obviously it was given away. So it's given away a 50, obviously with the fact that he already marked the ball in that, and then obviously Charlie and Clayton Oliver got into a bit of a scuffle, into a verbal scuffle with Charlie. Charlie ends up rubbing his fingers in his hair, and obviously they deem that as an offence as well. So it was another 50 added onto that. So Jenna Laverde ended up having a shot for goal, and it hit the post. So that's why he got the one behind. Got the goal. Probably would have added a little bit of momentum into our sails, but by the time we only ended up getting into a situation of maybe twice scoring multiple goals in a row, and that was well into the second half, well into the third quarter, if not into the fourth quarter, when that happened. It was not great. Finn Callahan was actually subbed out, I think, about 3 or 4 minutes before the game actually finished as well. Not ideal. 2 goals, 1 for the Giants in the first quarter to 7 goals, 4 for the Swans in the first. and then 2 goals and 3 behinds for the Giants in the second, and 5 goals and 5 behinds for the Swans. So not great in terms of that. Quite a bit in front. As I said, the highest was 61 one stage. There's 5 goals, 1 for the Swans in the third quarter compared to 4 goals, 3 behind. So it's probably actually almost their best scoring quarter of the game. And then we ended up scoring 5 goals, 3 in the last compared to 4 goals and 3. So we actually did end up winning the last quarter, but yeah, very late. And just see there's a highlight for an ankle concern for Finn Callahan, so they probably subbed him out for that reason in particular. Funny, the medal that's introduced for this game in particular was won by Errol Gulen. I didn't know that he actually had 41 disposals on his hand, but yeah, so he ended up getting the medal for the derby. I think that's his 3rd or 4th in playing in derby, so he's up towards the top of the list for that. But yeah, our season continues to go on a slide, and yeah, we actually did end up dropping a position, dropping to 12th at the moment. Obviously, with one of the games in hand, with our percentage getting a decent amount of hit, about 3% off that, 98.3% now in 12th position, and the fact that Carlton also won against the Gold Coast, even though the Gold Coast were in front for quite a bit of the game, they choked. They choked and they ended up losing. They lost by 13 points at the end of it at Marvel Stadium, and yeah, so it affected us as well. So we dropped to 12th position now, but ultimately St Kilda or North, they play each other today. So when it comes down to that result, that's going to matter, because whatever team does win, whether it be North Melbourne, if North Melbourne do end up winning, they'll jump us as well, so we'll drop to 13th. If not, if it's St Kilda, we'll stay in 12th position. But at this point in time, all of our focus needs to be on the last 4 games and trying to win all of them to give us a really, really good chance to get into 10th position, because I don't think we'll be getting any higher than that in terms of the wildcard spots. I think that in terms of the positions right now, Geelong are in front, and they're in front by 8 points compared to Carlton on the same amount of games. So Geelong would have to lose 2 more than the team in 10th position to get the team in 10th position to jump them. So ultimately, at that point, Geelong for the Giants would have to lose 3 out of the last 4, and the Giants win all of their games basically to jump in. So yeah, I don't see that happening. So ultimately, the Giants, with their season on the line for the last month of the season, hanging in 12th or 13th position and trying to fight for that 10th position, which means that at the moment, with the Western Bulldogs winning against the Tigers, they would be playing at Marvel Stadium, because obviously Geelong and Collingwood are in 8th and 9th at the moment, so ultimately their game would be at the MCG. So right now, yes, we would be playing under the lid at Marvel, which again, we've been winless so far this season as well. So if the Giants ended up making it, but our focus obviously is the Adelaide Oval next week, going up against Port Adelaide. Very, very important game. And I believe that's on a Saturday as well. That's Saturday. One of the late games on Saturday, 6:35 p.m. my time. But yeah, it's one of those games where we need to win. We need to win the majority of the games that we have left. Pretty much all of them, I would think, as well, including Adelaide, which in Adelaide as well, considering how they played against Collingwood just a few nights ago, not ideal in terms of Adelaide, but they're going to be fighting for a top 6 spot at this point in time. They've got Essendon next week, so they're going to probably bounce back from that, you would imagine. They got the Tigers the week after that, and then Adelaide end up having the Dockers. So ultimately, they could be coming off a loss in the second last round of the season before playing us at Optus Stadium. Second last week, obviously going to Optus Stadium for them before obviously coming back to Adelaide. So everything's against the wall right now. Obviously, we've got Port Adelaide to get over in Adelaide. That's not going to be an easy game at all. And then obviously play against the Suns in Canberra before playing against West Coast at home, which we'll be thinking of going to that game. Obviously, the date has not been set for that yet, still at this point in time, but I think it would only be a matter of time in the next week or so that they will be bringing that out. Because I would imagine that considering where West Coast positions is right now, they wouldn't be playing that game on a Thursday night or a Friday night. I think most likely that it'll be either a Saturday or a Sunday game. So I'd imagine it would be on the weekend for that particular game. Out of the games in that round 23 clash, you got Q Clash, which possibly could be one of the late games on possibly the Saturday or the Sunday. I don't think they will do it on Thursday or Friday. Possibility, maybe on a Thursday. But I think that ultimately you've got Hawthorn Collingwood that's definitely going to be on one of the nights on Thursday or Friday night. I think that's for certain at this point in time. And then Fremantle and Adelaide will probably be the other one. One of those two will be Thursday and the other one will be Friday, definitely, I would think and I would imagine at this point in time. Obviously, there was 2 games this week in terms of games this week in particular. I would imagine possibly in round 23, round 24, they probably do 3 games on the Sunday. But yeah, I think out of the games that are there, you've got North, Geelong, Richmond, St Kilda, Western Bulldogs, Carlton. That's another interesting one. But obviously, Fremantle versus Adelaide, that's top 6 right now. That's first versus 5th at the moment. And then Collingwood and Hawthorn, obviously, they're pretty embroidered with obviously being in Melbourne, being close together. That's 3rd versus 8th at this point in time. Any of the other games really don't scream out like marquee games. Maybe, obviously, if the Carlton's still playing well, Western Bulldogs and Carlton. But again, in saying that, that's just, it depends on that. And then obviously round 24, Collingwood, Brisbane, that's close to the top of the list in terms of a Thursday or Friday game. And apart from that game in particular, St Kilda, Gold Coast, maybe. You'd think it'd be like Geelong and Richmond or Carlton, Fremantle will possibly be another one of those nights as well. But yeah, it's just, it wasn't a great effort at all for the Giants. They got absolutely swamped. I think it's like the 4th or 3rd highest total, I think, in terms of total loss this year. It's quite a big one. Actually, it could even be 2nd as well, to be fair, because obviously the Bulldogs in round 1, obviously that result is the big one of the year. But yeah, we just shot ourselves in the foot a lot. Our defense just couldn't muscle up, and Sydney Derby, 51-point loss to the Swans for the Giants. And again, season in terms of playing finals is hanging by the thinnest of threads right now. Alright, something that made me feel a little bit better, especially on the trip home. home from obviously the game against the Giants and the Swans. 34 points to 6 for the Titans women's team over the Cowboys women's team. I'm going to refer it to the Cowboys women's team because, I could call them the Cowgirls, but some people might be offended by that, and I could call them the Cowboys women's team, and some people will be offended by that as well. So it's a bit hard when it comes to the male-centric names of some of these clubs in terms of the NRL going into, obviously, the women's game in particular, but won't get into that. Obviously, that's a discussion for a much better channel than myself. But getting into the game, Phoenix Rain Hippai ended up scoring in the second minute of the game. Was not converted. Tegan Levi ended up scoring in the 12th minute, which was converted by Lauren Brown. In fact, Lauren Brown got 5 out of 6, so the rest of the tries that we ended up getting during the game, which was 6, that she ended up converting on. So Tegan Levi in the 12th minute, Indy Bostock in the 15th minute, Jamie Chapman in the 22nd minute, and then Cowboys got a break and got a try in the 33rd minute through Rosie Kelly, which was converted by Emma Manzelman. Then after that, second half, 22 points to 6 was half-time score. Pretty good performance there. Second half, it was all Titans in terms of scoring. Tegan Levi again with a brace, with a double in the 42nd minute, and Indy Bostock also got a double in the 61st minute. So that made it the final total of 34 points to 6 for the Titans women's team. Fantastic performance again from them. 84% in terms of completion rate to 75% from the Cowboys women's team. 60% for the Titans, 40% for the Cowboys. In terms of kick defusal, 60 to 56%, so it's pretty close in the Titans' favour there. Effective tackles, 92 to 91% in terms of the Titans as well, so that's actually pretty well done. But 30 missed tackles to 14, obviously in the favour of the Cowboys women's team, and then 8 ineffective tackles compared to 4 in the favour of the Titans. Errors, 12 errors to 10, Cowboys women's team's way. 7 penalties conceded to 5 in the favour of the Titans. So ultimately, I think the Titans ended up conceding 7 penalties during the game. 1 on report for a player on the Cowboys women's team. But ultimately, Cowboys were playing at home as well. So that kind of helped a lot of things in terms of this team. And this team just keeps humming. I don't know how they keep doing it. But again, after a pretty shittily effort in the first game in particular, in putting us against the Roosters, obviously, from round 1. 3 wins on the trot puts us right now in provisional second at the moment. We are tied on the same amount of points as Brisbane, but obviously Brisbane have still got to play today, and they actually play Newcastle. Newcastle is sitting in 4th right now. Ultimately, they would be on the same amount of points if they do win today. And we are in front of the Sydney Roosters, but the Sydney Roosters are going to play the Tigers later on today as well. So in terms of the 2 teams that ultimately, or the 3 teams in and around us in the top 4, we might still be in 4th position, but most likely we're going to be in 3rd if Newcastle do end up losing today. The lowest we could drop is 3rd. But in terms of the results, with the lowest we could drop is 4th. So we're still going to be in the top 4 with these results, which is great for our team in particular. Much better performance again, up to 68%, 68 in the positive in terms of for and against right now. So looking good. 62 points conceded, but 130 in terms of scoring. We're the highest scoring side in the competition right now, obviously, until Brisbane play, unless Brisbane win and don't score that many points at all because we're only in front of them by 18 at the moment. If they don't get too many points scored in, we'll have obviously the more points for. But yeah, it's going to be one of those things. We'll see what happens. But ultimately, good result from women. Second position right now, but ultimately could be as low as fourth, depending on other results. But again, still a great effort from the Gold Coast considering where they were. And then obviously we play against the Warriors women's team, and I believe that is also at home as well, considering that's a home game for the men. I think that's a double header if memory serves me right, next week. So we'll see. Oh, actually, no, it's actually Magic Round. I completely forgot that was next week. So Magic Round will be in Wagga Wagga. So it's actually not too far away from where I'm living. It's a couple of hours drive from here. Well, actually, it's a few hours drive. What am I talking about? It's a couple of hours drive from my grandma's place in Young, because she lives in Young. So going to Wagga Wagga from there, I think it's only like an hour and a half, 2 hours from there. But yeah, so Magic Round for the women is going to be there this year. So ultimately we'll be playing against the Warriors. And it'll be on the Sunday of that in particular. But ultimately for the women, it's 3 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday. Sharks, Tigers, Dragons, Roosters, Raiders, Cowboys, Cowboys women's team, the Bulldogs, and the Broncos, Warriors versus Titans, and Eels versus Knights at Magic Round. So we'll see what happens with that. But ultimately, the Warriors are in behind us at the moment in terms of on the table right now. They're in 5th position at this point in time. But again, that could change as well. So it'll be interesting to see where everything lies. But great performance from the Titans women's team again. 3 wins on the trot, and this time against the Cowboys women's team in North Queensland. So away from home for the first time this year, I think. Actually, I think that's the first time we've actually played away from home. So great result again from Titans women's team, and let's continue on with it. We just need more and more of that. We'll get to finals if we keep winning. So just going to keep winning and keep scoring points, which they're looking like they're doing in the last couple of games, which is great. Alright, Monday morning we went over obviously the Giants and being disappointing, and we went over the Titans women's team being fantastic on the Saturday. Obviously yesterday the Titans men's played. They played pretty locally. They played in Cogra. They played at Jubilee Oval, so relatively close to where I am at the moment. Obviously both teams coming off really good performances in the last month. Obviously the Titans winning last week as well against Manly. The Dragons looking a lot better, obviously in their attack and their defence in play. Big game for both clubs at this point in the season, just to gain momentum going into obviously next season. And it was a 38-18 point win over the Dragons for the Titans. So that means for the first time this season, the Titans have won back-to-back games in the men's competition, and it's taken a while for them to do that. And ultimately it's come at the wrong time of the year. Preferably we'd like to have more, but obviously it was a good result from the Titans. At halftime, it ended up being 18 points to 12 in the favour of the Titans as well. So the Titans pretty much led for most of the game. Though in saying that, the Dragons did end up scoring first through Tyrell Sloan off a pretty good play from Clint Gufferson, obviously in his milestone game. I think it was game 250 for him, I believe, off the top of my head. But yeah, so it was a fantastic run of play. It passes to the wing. Tyrell Sloan almost steps out. So it was almost for naught at that point in time, but Tyrell put it in. Valentine Holmes, perfect in terms of conversions. Jane Campbell missed one. But Wasn't very long after that. Philip Sami in the 9th minute ended up getting a try, and that was the only conversion that Jaden Campbell actually missed of the entire game, was the first try. Then in the 13th minute, Jalen DeGroot scored his first try, which was converted, and then in the 25th minute, he ended up getting a double. Pretty great play from Jalen, honestly, to get a double during the game in particular, but especially considering that he's been in and out of the side pretty much the entire year. He's only played, obviously, in the current side a couple of times, obviously with other players due to injury and that sort of thing. But obviously, because AJ was out for this game, he was obviously taken AJ's spot, and he's obviously scored a double. It's made it his own. Kyle Flanagan, 32nd minute, ended up scoring, was converted. So yeah, that equaled obviously the 18-12 scoreline, with obviously a penalty goal that was relatively in front of the uprights by Jaden Campbell. Not sure what the penalties were for the penalty goals, because there was more than one in the game. We'll get to the second one fairly soon. In fact, actually, that's where we'll get to next, because in the 50th minute, they also got another penalty goal, which obviously put us up 20 points to 12 at that point in time. Obviously, 8-point buffer, obviously over-converted try. And then Oliver Pascoe gets involved again, gets another try in the 57th minute. Was passed off by one of the forwards. I know that for sure. I can't remember which one. It might have been Mo, but I might be wrong with that. I did watch the highlights last night before bed, but yeah, I can't exactly remember who pushed through. But obviously Oliver was right behind him, got the pass off, banged straight over. Jaden Campbell in the 61st minute ended up scoring his own try during the game. A couple of dummies, a couple of shows and goes as well, beat them to the line at that point in time. Converted his own try as well. Jacob Little in the 68th minute gave the Dragons a little bit of hope, but obviously was a consolation try even probably at that point in time, you'd think. And then in the 77th minute, Tino finally goes over the line from a short pass from Sam Verrills. The short crash play with the short pass to Tino, of him being the second man wide from the ruck, actually does work. So he does get off the board, gets a try for the season. We've played that crash play a few times with a few players, and it has worked with players like Aaron Mahal. It has worked with obviously Curtis Moran as well. There's another one that comes to mind. But when we've done it with players like Bo Firma, and especially even Tino, when we tried it earlier this year as well, when some of the games have been in balance and obviously pass has gone either too high on Tino, or Tino's just dropped it over the line before he's got it down. Made it stick, obviously, 77th minute, and it was converted in the 78th, which made the final total to be 38-18 for the Titans. Great win away from home. Second last game away from home for the season that's left at the moment. 53% to 47% in terms of possession for the Titans, so it's pretty even, all things considered. The completion rate probably reflects it a little bit, 90% for the Titans to 75% for the Dragons, so 15 more percent in that, but obviously they did have, the Titans did end up having more of the ball, so they probably had some more sets. But in saying that, 90% for the Titans, really, really good result in terms of completion rate, because our completion rate overall for the season's a lot lower than that, but 90% is fantastic from this team. Kick defusal, 67% in terms of the Dragons, 50% for the Titans, so not great, but it is one of those things. 89% to 90%, 90% to the Dragons in terms of effective tackle percentage. Missed tackles, 31 to 22, the 31 coming from the Dragons. One intercept from the Dragons as well. Obviously they didn't capitalise really much on that. I don't think it led to a try from memory. And then 15 ineffective tackles to 11, 15 on the Titans side. So not necessarily the best in that. But obviously negative play 11 errors to 5, 11 for the Dragons, 5 for the Titans. 3 penalties to 2, conceded 3 for the Dragons, 2 for the Titans. 6 ruck infringements to 2, 6 in the favour of the Titans there. So I think they might have got 6 of those compared to the 2. We got 1 penalty inside the 10 metres, so another 6 again there. And then 2 players on report for the Dragons and 1 obviously for the Titans. But yeah, great effort from the Titans in that, and obviously other results did go our way as well. Obviously with the Broncos going down on Saturday night to the Cowboys. The Gold Coast move up to 13th, so for the first time in a long time, and I think it might only be the second time this season, the Titans are actually out of the bottom 4. They're in 13th position right now, mainly due to for and against, minus 86 at this point. Obviously with the Broncos, they're at minus 132. Then it goes bigger and bigger after that. Minus 182 for the Eels, minus 208 for the Tigers because they got smashed again on Saturday, and minus 267 for the Dragons. But most of that obviously was earlier in the season when they weren't playing nearly as well in that. But minus 86, pretty great result. Definitely shows that our defence is a lot better than it was last season, and ultimately at this point in the season. It's funny because I thought they were up to like 200-300 at this point in the season, but seeing the stats for it, because someone actually posted it, I think we're like, obviously we're at 100, over 100 in the negative going into the game yesterday. And I think at that same point last year, I think they were minus 130, 140 last season. So I thought it was going to be a lot bigger difference, but I think with the last couple of results during the year, we kind of fell off in terms of defence as well, and we went up against some good opponents as well, which didn't help. But yeah, so move up to 13th position. Can't move any higher because obviously Melbourne ended up having, I believe they had the bye last week, so they still have their bye, so they ended up winning in their game, so they're on 20 points. Canberra obviously on 22 as well, so a lot of teams moved up. Obviously we moved up, but the teams in front of us also moved up, so we can't really move up in terms of positioning. But 13th, not a bad situation. Obviously going into next week, it's a double header again for the Titans. Obviously with the girls being in Wagga to play against the Warriors, and we play the Warriors at Seabus. So most of our games now, in terms of the men's competition, are at home. The only game that is outside of that is the game when we go to Newcastle to play against the Knights, which will be in a couple of weeks' time. If I scroll down to the Titans. So we play... No, I didn't press that button. I don't know why it said that I pressed that button. But we play, obviously, the Warriors this coming week, then play the Cowboys after that at home. Obviously, it's the second game between the two of us for the year, and most of these teams will be our second play. Obviously, we played the Warriors early this season, played the Cowboys. Knights, I believe it's the first time we've played them this season. It's the only time. Sharks, obviously, after that at home. Bunnies, it'll be the first time this year, and then obviously finishing off with the Dolphins at home as well. But yeah, so in a couple of weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, not this weekend coming, not the weekend after, but the weekend after that, we play at McDonald Jones. So it's going to be interesting to see on the 16th of August that game is. But that's the only game that's away from home at this point in time, because obviously we play on Saturday the 1st, play the 3 o'clock game, and then we play on Thursday the 6th of August against the Cowboys. So that's one of the only days that we have coming up, apart from obviously the last round, which we play on Friday. That isn't a Saturday or a Sunday game at all. So yeah, interesting to see what we'll have in terms of results. Possibly could knock off the Warriors. The Warriors were not great against the Bulldogs. They were playing at the same time the Giants were playing the Swans. And the girls' game was actually playing before the men's. The girls got up, in terms of the girls' Bulldogs team got up. And then obviously the Warriors men played after and played against the Bulldogs. And the Bulldogs had held them scoreless for most of the game at that point in time. But yeah, so I think it ended up being 18 points to 6 in that game. And it finished up not too long after the AFL Sydney Derby clash. So yeah, a lot of traffic was coming out from the train station from Olympic Park at that point in time. Obviously, I was on the train early because obviously left the game early at NG. But yeah, we could win possibly against the Warriors. The Warriors have been we've been a bit of a bogey side for the Warriors, as they have been a little bit for us as well. But in recent memory, we have been a little bit of a bogey side, despite on how bad our team has been over the last couple of years. We just seem to sometimes win against the Warriors. But yeah, it's a huge situation because obviously we play against third, play against 8th, play against 7th, play against 4th, play against 6th, and play against 5th. So all the teams that we have left to play at the moment in the season are all in the top 8. The Dragons were the only one that were outside at that point in time. Obviously, the Manly Sea Eagles were in it before. They did drop out just before we played them. But yeah, the rest of this team, rest of the year in terms of the season, in terms of opponents, all in top 8. So we can still rummage around. We can still formulate, obviously, the finals series for a lot of these other teams. We obviously we have a potential to make it, but we'd have to win pretty much every game that we play, and have a lot of other results kind of go against other teams. At that point in time, some of it is in our hands in terms of like results like that, because obviously with South, they're in 6th position, Knights are in 7th, Cowboys in 8th, so that's like 3 games near the bottom of the 8 that we could obviously rummage around and score points off if we wanted to get in, but obviously I don't think we will. It'd be crazy if we do to make a run. But I think that there's too many opponents in front of us that also have won against us, like, say, the Bulldogs, for example, that are in a much better state to get in compared to us. And even the Raiders at this point in time, they're in front of us. And obviously Melbourne still in front of us. They're in front of us by 1 position. So, but great result from the Titans. Back-to-back wins for the first time this season, 38 points to 18 to the Titans over the Dragons. And obviously another little added bonus for this week in particular. Obviously Liverpool are back. They're back with pre-season friendlies right now. And it was them versus Sunderland in Nashville. It ended up being a relatively good game. It ended up being a 4-2 win. So that means that, yes, Illawarra starts with a win. Yes, obviously it is in friendlies. But it's good to start off with a win over Sunderland. 4-2 ended up being the final scoreline. But it was 1-1 at half-time, so which made it very interesting in terms of the score sheet. I think relatively Liverpool actually scored, and then Sunderland actually ended up scoring not too long after that. So ultimately, good result in terms of that. Kieran Morrison, I'm guessing, is one of the youth players that's kind of been used for this friendly game. He scored in the 13th minute for Liverpool, and then Enzo Lefebvre, I think that's how that might be pronounced. It's got the inflection on the first E of the two. It's like Fee, like F-E-E, but the first E's got the inflection on top of it. So I think it might be Faye for Sunderland. And then quite a lot of subs at halftime. Almost pretty much, almost a lot of the team got switched on for both teams. Then they scored again in the 49th minute, which made it obviously 2-1 to them in terms of Sunderland. I'm not even going to try and pronounce that. Well, actually I will. Timur Tutorov, I believe that might be how that's pronounced, or at least that last name. And he got subbed on at halftime, so he scored about 4 minutes after halftime. He scored in the 49th minute. Then Dominic Soboslai ended up scoring in the 56th minute. Great strike. And then Federico Chiesa ended up scoring in the 72nd minute. And then Luis Comas ended up scoring in the 85th minute. So ended up being a 4-2 scoreline. And yeah, Iraola starts with a win for the season and for his first outing as obviously Liverpool manager. It seemed like they did alright. In terms of stats, just have a look at the stats. More possession for Liverpool, 63.8 compared to 36.2. Scoring shots, 6 shots on target, 6 shots off target, compared to 5 shots on target and 2 off for Sunderland. So 12 scoring shots for the game, 6 on target, so that's 50%. That's not too bad, but obviously could be a much better. But again, first hit out of the season, so not really surprised, especially after obviously the World Cup and everybody coming back for that. There's a few players that actually weren't playing in this game. People like Allison wasn't in goals at all. Alexander Isaac also was another player that wasn't playing. Alexis McAllister as well. But again, with some of those players, especially Alexis, I would imagine he's getting a rest, considering obviously he just come off the back of a World Cup campaign that went all the way to the final. So yeah, I don't blame Alexis for not playing in this game. Hopefully he'll play in one of the friendlies in the US. I would imagine possibly maybe the last one. Yeah, four corners to one offside in terms of Sunderland's favour, 18 fouls to 9, so the defence was pretty bad on that. But 1 yellow card to Sunderland for the game. So, yeah, not a bad result for Liverpool. Obviously, not much to talk about because obviously didn't watch any of the highlights or anything like that. I can't really do that. You can only really do that through the Liverpool app, which again you have to buy a subscription for. And I'm not going to do that just for pre-season stuff. But obviously I'll get more stuff, obviously, in terms of me paying for it. But I'm not sure if it's a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription. But even then, I'm not really going to be paying for that in particular, because that's not, only we can go over the whole cliff notes of it. And yeah, so the next game they'll be playing is on the 30th of July against Wrexham. Wrexham just come off a close win against Leeds United. So they'll be playing at Yankee Stadium on Thursday my time, which was at 9:30 in the morning. So eventually we'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about the game against Leeds after that at Soldier Field. So I think there might be a group. So it might be Sunderland, Wrexham, and Leeds and Liverpool all playing together in the US in that group, because it looks like that's what it looks like, with obviously Wrexham playing Leeds today. So yeah, interesting. We'll see what happens with that, and then obviously after that we obviously have the games at Anfield against Monaco, and then the 2 games against Como, a few hours apart, in terms of the second lot of friendlies there. But interesting to see what happens with that. Obviously, but starting off with a win for Iraola and Liverpool for 2026, and looking forward to the EPL season. We'll see what happens with them in particular. Obviously, the first game will be against Newcastle United at St James's Park. So we'll be playing away. We won't be playing at home until the second week of the season, which will be against Nottingham Forest, and obviously against Glasner. Obviously, his second game as the coach of Nottingham Forest in the Premier League. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. It's going to be interesting to see where we stack up in terms of the teams. But who knows? At least 4-2, great start, and looking good during pre-season for Liverpool over Sunderland. So I'll mention briefly before we get into the miscellaneous segment with the Cubs and that. One thing I will mention is the Wanderers, obviously in the Australia Cup, round of 32 clash against Tigers FC, which is a team that comes out of the ACT, so it comes out of around the Canberra area. They played at McKellar Park, so they actually played where Canberra United usually plays, the women's team. It ended up being a 2-0 win for the Wanderers, though it was 0-0 at half time, and obviously it was their first big game back for this pre-season before heading into the A-League season, which starts in a couple of months, starts in about 3 months' time. So they didn't play terribly. DePizio ended up scoring the first goal, and Brandon Barella ended up scoring the second goal about 5-10 minutes later. And it was decently into the second half as well. I will say, in terms of attack, the attack is alright. Passing the ball around seemed alright for the players, but they did seem like they were a bit nervous to start off with, obviously trying to work out combinations, like new combinations and stuff like that, obviously with the team that we had, excuse me, that we had on the foot. Excuse me, still getting over getting sick. I'm close to getting over at the time that I was recording this part, but yeah, haven't slightly gone over it yet. Still got a cough from that. Swallowed some spit too, which didn't help that there, but yeah, I think they're just trying to work out combinations right now in terms of players. Obviously, I think that we haven't got our full side just yet. We might, excuse me, we might have like 1 or 2 players that we haven't signed on yet, that might sign on before obviously the A-League season starts, but hopefully we can continue on. So we're obviously through to the round of 16, which is great for the Wanderers. This was, the round of 16 was the spot last year that obviously we went up against Heidelberg United. So it wasn't ideal in terms of a loss there, but obviously Heidelberg went almost the entire way through the competition and actually almost won it too. So they did get showed up on the night, but again, they weren't too far away from it in terms of that, but there was lots of things to be desired when it comes down to that for the Wanderers. Hopefully we can do some much better than round of 16. Hopefully we can get to the semis. We'll see, because this teams could be good. We had quite a few shots on goal and missed a lot of them. Cicluna tried to go for a long shot a couple of times during the game. Some of our new players tried to get some foot on ball and get it in the back of the net, but wasn't to be. Some of them were skyward. I think that Brandon Barella, put it over the post at least once, if not twice. I think it's just people just getting back into the swing of things. And obviously, it is what it is. And to add on to the end of this, obviously we'll talk about Liverpool, because obviously we're talking about soccer/football. So we're going to go over some of the signings before we go into the miscellaneous stuff with the Cubs. For the women's team, we just completed a signing for Mao Itamura from Feyenoord. I'm not sure if that's how the club's name is pronounced, but that's how phonetically it's spelt. So great player. Ultimately, I believe, if memory serves, obviously she played for Feyenoord. She obviously played. I think she played in the Asian Cup as well. One of the big players in the Asian Cup, just gone a couple of months ago, which actually wasn't too bad. She didn't play that bad at all. So that'd be a good signing for us in terms of the women's team. Don't know why that switched to photos when I was getting rid of the thing, the notification. And Lucy Parry just signed on last night in terms of my time, signed on a new contract. So she's also returning to Liverpool, which is great, the women's team. As for the men's, obviously we haven't had too many, we haven't had any new transfers or anything like that brought into the swing of things. Obviously they're preparing this weekend for their pre-season game their first one. So hopefully things will be relatively good for that. For Liverpool, because they've got quite a few things to work out in terms of combinations and that. Obviously, some players returning from injury. Against Sunderland, it'd be Sunday my time at 6 a.m. So we'll talk about that as well when we get to that. But just thought I'd go over some of the transfers and new signings now. And obviously new contracts, because at least then I can talk about it, and then obviously we can talk about the game when we get to that. Obviously they're training in Chicago right now, but obviously not playing there. They're not playing at Soldier Field until I think the start of August. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but obviously they're just training all over the place. We'll see what happens. In terms of that, Freddie Woodman, obviously goalkeeper, signed back on and signed a new contract for Liverpool as well for the men's team. So that's a good signing there. And Armin Pessi has moved on to a loan deal to TSV Hartberg. So obviously subject to international clearance, obviously, in terms of that. But obviously he's in the under-21s system for Liverpool. And that Sunderland game is played, obviously, in Nashville. So Illinois, that's not relatively too far away in terms of Chicago. But, it's just one of those things where hopefully we can get into a situation and getting on top of things in terms of signings. Hopefully we can get some more signings as well. And hopefully we look good on the weekend in terms of Liverpool, because they kind of needed a little bit. I think they needed to pick me up after, obviously, the season that we just had, because it was to say the least. Not really winning anything. And obviously Iriola will be under pressure as well as the manager, obviously, at the club. So there's that. We do have another game on the 16th of August as well, against Como 07, which is funny because it says that's a behind closed doors friendly and it's an additional one, but I'm pretty sure that was already in the schedule when I looked at it earlier, when I looked at it last week. Oh, actually, no. So there is a... Okay, so that's weird. So they've got a closed one, which I'm assuming... because they play on the 17th. This is why I was confused. So they're playing behind closed doors on the 16th. So they're playing 2 games back to back, it looks like, maybe. So because they're playing at 9 p.m. my time on Sunday the 16th, and then 3 a.m. my time on Monday the 17th. They're playing Como as well. So maybe in terms of friendlies... that first game could be like obviously the up-and-comers in terms of both clubs, possibly. And then obviously the first grade sides, we'll say, first grades, obviously the first picks for both of those sides will play in that friendly a couple of hours later. It's just a weird situation. I don't know if... It's weird how they put it like that, because it sounded like it was going to be an extra game like early, but it's like a couple hours beforehand, so I'm not sure what's going on there. But some good signings. Obviously, Freddie Woodman, in terms of the men's, obviously good backup goalkeeper. He did relatively well this season, just gone. He obviously did the best he could, and he was under pressure a bit. And didn't play, obviously, in the greatest amount of games as well, to be fair. It wasn't his fault that some of the results kind of didn't go our way with that. But hopefully he can have a better season this year and do well. And hopefully both teams, in terms of Liverpool, the women's team and the men's team, do better this season. But obviously 2-0 to the Wanderers over Lions FC in the Australia Cup, and they move on to the round of 16, which obviously not all of those games are going to be all done yet. Some of them are playing on Sunday. I think Melbourne City's, is in one of them. but obviously there's some more round of 32 games still to play. So that draw won't be for another couple of weeks. So I think off the top of my head, but our next game should be in like the next. I would imagine it'd be within the next month. That would make sense to me, but we'll see. But 2-0 for them. Looked average in parts, but obviously got the win eventually. But lots of little things to work out for that team in particular, and hopefully they do work them out. Alright, miscellaneous stuff. I'm going to talk about the Cubs. Obviously their series against the Detroit Tigers. So ultimately it is Friday morning when I'm recording this. So obviously they're in the day break between series right now. They will be playing Pittsburgh starting tomorrow morning. But they just played the Detroit Tigers in a 3-game series at home at Wrigley Field. It ended up being a 2-1 series loss. And yes, it's another team that's near the bottom of the American League again that has won against this Cubs team. And I don't know why. I don't understand. We'll get to that. We'll get to why in a second and what's going on. So the first game ended up being 8-6, an 8-6 loss. It did go to extra innings though. It did go to 10 innings. So at the top of the first, Riley Green ended up hitting a 3-run home run, which again in starting in terms of pitching for this game in particular, Jamison Talion ended up returning for this and ended up giving out a double, a single. In fact, actually, let me have a look at it. So it was a 2 out. So he got 2 outs, right? You got 1 out, got a single, got a double, and a 3-run home run, and then also a home run as well before he got the second out. So literally he gave up 2 base hits and 4 runs, 2 home runs in the top of the first, which made it 4-0 Tigers. Seiya Suzuki ended up hitting a home run at the bottom of the 3rd inning, and it actually ended up being a 2-run home run with Miguel Amaya also scoring as well, which made it 4-2. And then Michael Busch ended up hitting a home run as well in the same inning to make it 4-3. So it made Detroit probably a little bit nervous in the bottom of the 3rd, and obviously making 1 run back. And then we get down to the top of the 8th, so going quite a ways through the game. Dylan Dingler again. It's a fucking weird name. Some of these names, I swear, for some of these baseball players are really, really weird. Gets his second home run of the day after getting one in the first inning to make it 5-3 for the Tigers. Bottom of the 8th, so just on the other side, Ian Happ ended up hitting a 2-run home run. First home run for a little while for him. Alex Bregman also got scored in that to make it 5-5 at the bottom of the 8th. We did have bases loaded in the bottom of the 9th, which was a killer. And we had them relatively loaded, I think, with 1 out. Seiya Suzuki didn't end up hitting it out, like even a fly out. He got struck out, and as did Alex Bregman. And he swung on a ball that was outside that would have been ball 4, which probably would have actually won us the game as well. So it went to extra innings, and in the top of the 10th, there was an immediate single off Trent Thornton. He actually got a pitch hit straight back at him. It hit him in the left heel. So he is injured right now. I don't think he's necessarily on the injured list. I don't think they've put him on the injured list just yet, because I think they're just trying to work him out of that. Because I think for the rest of the games, I think they were trying to work out on how bad it was. But he got taken in straight out after the first, I think it was the first pitch or 2 from that. And then Assad ended up coming in to pitch, which actually I thought wasn't necessarily a bad decision, because obviously Assad has started in some of these games and actually has pitched decently well in some of those games as well. This was not one of his finest moments at all. Dylan Dingler again got on the end of 1 and got a single, which obviously, considering it was obviously extra innings. There was a person already on second, scored that person, got another person to second play, get the person that singled to second, and then Spencer Torkelson ended up hitting a single as well. Went to centre fielder PCA. It scored two more. It made it 8-5 to Detroit. Bottom of the 10th, Pedro Ramirez ended up getting into a force out. Nico Horner ended up getting out on second base. Alex Bregman ended up scoring, and obviously Pedro got to first base to make it 8-6. So it was 2 outs at that point in time, and we struck out on the next inning, which did not help. Struck out on the next batter, which didn't help that at all. So pretty disappointing from that. I don't think some people are blaming Thornton for that. I don't think you really can. Obviously, he was trying to go for it, but you're trying to get out of the way of a ball that's getting hit straight at you, relatively fast, mind you. Like, obviously a pitch, I'm not sure if it was like a curveball or anything like that, but his pitch would have been at least, you were thinking at least like 60, 70 miles an hour, if not more, if you went for the fastball. So that coming off the bat usually is probably just faster than it comes through the pitch. So it's one of those things where he's trying to get out of the way of a ball, and his reaction time's got to be like absolutely perfect to try and get out of the way of that. And obviously it hit him. So hopefully he's okay. I'm not sure. We haven't heard really anything. I haven't heard anything over the last couple of days either. So as far as I know, he's doing okay, but not sure what's going on there. But we'll see. Then the second game ended up being a lot better, 11 runs to 2. Though it was 11-0 for a lot of this game until the bottom of the 7th inning. Or actually, it was 9-0 rather, till obviously the 2 runs in the bottom of the 7th. But we'll get to that in a second. Carson Kelly ended up hitting a single, which scored PCA. And also Seiya Suzuki. It went decently to the back of the right field. Alex Bregman went to third. So this was a situation where the bases were loaded. And for a lot of this, the bases were loaded decent amount in the first inning. And the pitcher that was in there actually did get taken out like straight away in the first inning, because it was pretty bad. Because it was a walk. Alex Bregman got hit by a pitch, and then obviously Carson Kelly hit that single, which scored 2. Michael Bush ended up hitting a single, which scored Alex Bregman and put Carson Kelly to second. Then Nico Horner hit a single, which forced the bases to be loaded again. Ian Happ singled, which scored 1 and moved, obviously, everybody over. And this, mind you, no outs at this point, so it's already 4-0 in the first inning. Dansby ended up hitting a pop out in the infield fly rule. Alcantara ended up playing this game. He got out from striking out. PCA ended up walking, so this is the second time he's batted in this inning. So he walked, and obviously bases were loaded. So literally scored another run, made it 5-0. That's when they subbed out the starting pitcher for Ty Manning. And then Seiya Suzuki ended up walking, so it added another run on top of that. So it made it 6-0, and then Alex Bregman flied out to center field on the last out. But 6 runs in the first inning, which was crazy. We one-upped. It was like, well, okay, you score 4 on us in last night's game. We're gonna score 6 on you instead, to reciprocate that. Then in the bottom of the third, PCA ended up hitting a single, which scored Dansby Swanson. Ended up PCA and then actually going to second with that. It's funny, it's a single and then he goes to second base, but he's a good runner, man. And then bottom of the fifth, Michael Conforto ended up hitting a home run, 2-run home run. Dansby Swanson ends up scoring again, makes it 9-0 Cubs. Bottom of the seventh, this was a call that was overturned. They had to actually have a look at it for quite some time, because it could have been a double play. But in the bottom of the 7th, Seiya Suzuki got out on a force out. PCA was out at second. Ian Happ went and scored. Dansby Swanson ended up going to third, and Seiya Suzuki got to first. It looked like it was going to be a double play, and that's what it initially was called. Was that it was out at second, out at first. They challenged it. It went and was overturned. Obviously, that made it 10-0 Cubs. Alex Bregman hit a single, which scored Dansby Swanson in the 11th. Oh, actually, they play in the bottom. Yeah, so it was 11-0 rather. I was correct the first time. 11-0 Detroit. And then Dylan Dingler ended up hitting a home run, 2-run home run, in the top of the 9th to make it 11-2. So the shutout got completely squashed with that. But in saying that, much better game, obviously much better start, but a much better game for that. And then we obviously had yesterday's game. 5-1, which was not great. 4 hits in the entire game for the Cubs, and they did end up scoring first, which is probably even worse, the fact that we actually ended up scoring first and we gave up 5. So Seiya Suzuki in the bottom of the first ended up hitting a home run to left center field, so it made it 1-0. Top of the second, we immediately gave that run away. Torkelson ended up hitting a home run to left center field, made it 1-1. Top of the fourth, How you Lee, obviously one of the Detroit Tigers players. I think he's actually been there for a little while as well, if memory serves me right, at least a couple of seasons. He had a 3-run home run in the bottom, top of the fourth, made it 4-1 to Detroit. And then the top of the 9th, they ended up getting a double, which scored when PCA didn't field it, and they didn't make a play at it. Torkelson ended up scoring, made it 5-1, and it was pretty average from the Cubs in that last game. Colin Rea was on the pitch again, on the pitching mound, gave up 4 runs as well, 2 home runs, obviously that 3-run home run and the single home run as well. It's not great in terms of pitching from him. And obviously the hits went away as well, which didn't help. Didn't help the Cubs. But that's pretty disappointing from that. Detroit, in terms of scrolling down, they move up to 5th from the bottom now. I think they were actually 3rd or 4th. So I think they only jumped 1 position from memory, because I think they were under the Toronto Blue Jays at that point in time, in front of the Athletics, in front of the Royals, and in front of the Angels. But in saying that, it's pretty average performance from the Cubs, in especially that last game, because obviously that blew out our divisional race as well. It made it back to 7 games as well. Though the Mets did help us in the second game as well, so we did actually get a game back from the second game. Obviously that was the win for us, and obviously it was a win for the Mets. But obviously the Brewers ended up winning 2-1 in that series in that. So obviously the 2 games we drop against the Tigers add an extra game onto our race. So we're now 7 behind the Brewers in the division, and 5-5 from the last 10 games. Still 3.5 games inside the wild card spot at this point in time. I think we did lose a game in that. But it's not great in terms of that. We should be beating teams like this, and obviously puts us under a lot more pressure now. Obviously with our big block of games coming up, starting in Pittsburgh, the 3-game series in Pittsburgh, then obviously the 4-game series in St. Louis, before returning home to Wrigley Field to play against the Yankees and the Dodgers, and then Toronto Blue Jays for that extra catch-up game before heading out to Kansas City to play the Royals. So we kind of really needed that series to kind of not necessarily sweep it. I would have, like I said, I would have loved the fact that if they did sweep that would have been great. It is one of those things where this team just seems to not sweep as many teams off the park. in terms of series, which kind of sucks because that's kind of what we need right now. Because I feel like in terms of the Brewers, I don't know if they're going to hit a rut at all because that gap, like, yeah, some people will say, oh, it's 7 games. It's not that much if the Brewers get in a bit of a rut, but the problem is that they haven't all season, really. They've had a couple of games, maybe. Like, obviously, they had the 2-game loss in terms of the series for us in Milwaukee, and obviously got swept by the Pirates fairly recently. But apart from that, obviously the Cardinals haven't given us anything in terms of that. They end up keep losing all the time to the Brewers, despite obviously winning against us. It just doesn't make fucking sense to me. They play like absolute dog shit, and then they come out against us and they play amazing somehow. I don't know. But yeah, we kind of needed that. But hopefully we can get some series wins coming up, especially against division rivals, especially in that 4-game series against St. Louis. Obviously, the 3-game series against Pittsburgh is very important too. Obviously, we're behind in terms of the season series by 1 game in that. Obviously, despite the sweep that we ended up getting against the the 2 all series drawn in Pittsburgh. This is a series that's very important to help with the season. In particular, obviously, we've got St. Louis as well. To play a 4-game series there, we're behind by at least, I think, 2 or 3 games there. I think actually we might be behind by quite a few. It's one of those things. Because obviously playing against the Yankees are hit and miss, but obviously they're still relatively hot in their division, and then obviously the Dodgers are on top right now. So, before we head into obviously Toronto, which they're obviously desperate to win the series there at Wrigley Field in that catch-up game, and they kind of want to get out of the rut that they're in right now. They're in 4th last in their league right now, and then obviously in that series against Kansas City Royals, which the Royals don't want to be towards the bottom, but they are right now in 2nd last, but they'll kind of want a couple of wins at home, especially for their fans. It's been pretty average from the Cubs in terms of some of the series this year. Obviously getting swept by the Astros earlier in the season, and then obviously like a series like this where it's kind of, the last game was pretty boring, and they just, the bats did not come out to play. Obviously, the first game, that's baseball sometimes. Obviously, some things will fall your way, some things won't, but we kind of really needed that first game as well, because that last game was pretty average from us. So we'll see what happens starting tomorrow against Pittsburgh. Who knows at this point? It's going to be one of those series that I think could be here, there, and everywhere and go side to side. But hopefully the Cubs can get out on top in terms of that series, especially if it's 2-1. Like, ultimately that'll tie the series up in terms of the season series. If we end up sweeping Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, that'll be great for us, but I'm not expecting it, especially with how some of our batters have been this season. It's weird. It's weird because sometimes they'll hit and they'll get on a heater, and then they'll just disappear in another game that might be like a day or 2 after that. So I don't understand. But I guess that's just baseball. So 2-1 series loss to the Cubs against the Detroit Tigers. I was going to say Detroit Lions again. That's wrong. That's NFL. That doesn't start until fucking September. Fucking hell. Alright, one last bit of miscellaneous stuff. I'm just going to go over the table in terms of the AFL. We did get confirmation that the Origin fixtures will return starting next year as well. That was something that popped up this morning. It will be Western Australia versus South Australia in Adelaide next year, and then South Australia versus Victoria the year after, and then Western Australia playing Victoria in 2029, I believe, is how they set it out. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. In terms of the Giants, we'll go over pretty much the entire table anyway. Fremantle on top, 68 points on top. Sydney Swans in second position with 56, so that gap stayed pretty much the same between the two clubs. Third position, Hawthorn with 54. Then Brisbane round out the top four with 52 points. Then fifth position is the Adelaide Crows with 48 after an embarrassing game against Collingwood. Melbourne is in sixth, hanging on by just percentage at this point, though it is like 10% between them and the team in seventh, which is the Western Bulldogs, who are also on 48 points. Collingwood in 8th position on 46 points. It's only just because, well, despite Melbourne losing, they were still ahead by a game and a half at that point in time, and the Western Bulldogs ended up winning, so they stayed under that into the wildcard spots. Geelong in 9th position with 44 points. Then St Kilda did get up over North Melbourne, pretty much led almost the entire game, I think, pretty much in that with 36 points. I was kind of hoping that North Melbourne kind of did, despite us dropping to 13th position. Our percentage would have been a lot better than North Melbourne's if North Melbourne did end up getting in. So, it's one of those situations where it would have been down to percentage, and I have a feeling like if it was North Melbourne in the top 10, we could have beat them if we get to a situation where it's just a battle between the two clubs on percentage. That's the one that matters. The fact that it's St Kilda are now in front of us by like 7%, so it's a bit of a gap, like 7.5%. So it's not great. With that, Carlton obviously move up a position to 11th with 36 points. We dropped to 12th, obviously staying on 32 points after that embarrassment in the Sydney Derby. North Melbourne stay in 13th position, also on 32 points. 14th position, Gold Coast Suns really should have won that game against Carlton, but it is what it is. Port Adelaide in 15th with 24. West Coast with 16 points in 16th position. Essendon still in 17th position with 8. And Richmond on the bottom also on 8 points, but they both got a little bit battered. Essendon a little bit more in their game compared to Richmond, but not by much in their percentage. The difference between them is 4.5%. right now. But yeah, big game obviously for the Giants coming up against Port Adelaide in Adelaide. Arguably fixture of the year for the Giants to try and get up, because if we don't get up in this game in particular, that's pretty much season over at this point in time. You'd have to win all three games of the season after that if we lose to Port Adelaide, so not ideal. In terms of the NRL ladder, I didn't say it with the Titans men's team, apart from obviously the Titans moving up to 13th, but Penrith still in front, 34 points. In second position is now the Sydney Roosters on 32, with the Warriors going down to the Bulldogs. They dropped to third position with 30. Cronulla in fourth, also on 30 points. It's just the points difference there between the Warriors and the Sharks, but the Sharks are really coming up in terms of points. They're only behind by like 20 odd points now behind the Warriors, so that's pretty scary in terms of the teams in the top four. Dolphins had the bye, so they move up to 28 points in fifth position, and they stay in that position. Souths move up to sixth position with 26 points. Newcastle also dropped to 7th position, also on 26 points. And then rounding out the top 8 is, again, North Queensland, also on 26 points. So, yeah, 6th, 7th, 8th, all on 26. 9th position is the Bulldogs with 24. They move up after a big win against the Warriors. Manly dropped to 10th position, obviously losing again to, obviously, the Cronulla Sharks. They dropped to 10th position with 22. Canberra move up to 11th position, also on 22 points. Melbourne dropped to 12th on 20. Then Gold Coast on 18 points in 13th. 14th is Brisbane, also on 18 points, as is Parramatta in 15th position, and also the Tigers in 16th position, with obviously the Dragons on the bottom with 10 and 4 wins adrift from getting off the bottom of the ladder. So most likely at this point in time, they're going to win the wooden spoon. But again, crazier things have happened during the season, and many teams could still absolutely tank their seasons. So we'll see what happens with that. But last things last, we'll go to the Cubs series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. It was a big one, and it ended up being a 2-1 series win for the Cubs. So that means that at the moment, with that, they are all tied up in terms of the season series, I believe. Obviously winning away from home twice, winning away from home because they obviously didn't do it in the 4-game series. They split that 2 games apiece. But ultimately, it ended up being 2-0, and then they obviously lost this morning, and we'll get to that game in particular because I want to talk about that very, very soon. But ultimately, great game, 3-2 in the first game. It did go into extra innings as well. It was actually all tied up at the end, the start of the 6th inning, actually, because the bottom of the 5th, Henry Davis hit a single, scored one of the Pittsburgh Pirates players. And then PCA come out, hit a home run in the top of the 6th, which made it 1 apiece. Top of the 10th inning, so we obviously go into the extra innings. Pirates challenged a tag play. It was upheld and called that it was safe at home. Ian Happ ended up scoring. Pedro Ramirez went to second position, obviously top of the 10th. Obviously you have a player on second position, second base, and moving over. So obviously we scored that, and then we ended up loading up the bases after that because PCA ended up getting a hit as well, which moved Pedro Ramirez to third, Dansby to second, and PCA to third. And Seiya Suzuki ended up walking. So we actually got another run on top of that with Pedro scoring, because everyone had to walk the bases, and since the bases were loaded, scored another run and made it 3-1. Then Nick Gonzalez on the second out grounds out to the shortstop, obviously in Dansby Swanson, to first baseman. So Henry Davis did end up scoring from that second base position, but in doing that, we actually got the second out as well from that. So fantastic result in the first game for the Cubs. The second game was a hell of a lot better as well. Ended up being 11 runs to nothing, so an absolute shutout in that. And there was one thing that I did want to mention in one of the runs is that we actually ended up having a player called up in terms of prospects, the number 7 prospect in James Triantos, ended up playing in the game. He actually was called up for this series in particular. We'll get to him in a second as to why, but I'll mention that when we get to that. Top of the 5th inning, PCA hit a double, which scored Dansby Swanson, moved Miguel Amaya to third position, to third base. Then Seiya Suzuki hit a single, which scored 2 runs in the right field, made it 3-0 at the top of the 5th. Top of the 6th inning, Dansby Swanson ended up hitting a double, which scored Nico Horner in at home base. Pedro Ramirez once again moved to third base. Then Miguel Amaya hit a single, which scored 2 in that. Pedro and Dansby ended up scoring, so it made it 6-0. And then Michael Bush comes in, hits a single, and scores 2 himself. PCA ended up getting a single, which got him on base. So it scored Miguel Amaya and PCA for 8 runs apiece, 8 runs to nothing. PCA in the top of the 7th hit a home run, which scored 2-run home run to make it 10-0. And then obviously Pedro Ramirez hit a double, which scored James Triantos. Triantos. He ended up hitting a single on his first major league hit as well. So first of many, hopefully, in his career. But he ended up getting scored by Pedro Ramirez. So pretty much Pedro had a great game yesterday, which made it obviously 2 wins to nothing. And then we go to this morning, which ended up being 8 runs to 7. Great result. Not really, because, and we'll say it with me, Jameson Talion sucks. And we'll get to why in a second, but we actually did end up leading this game. Again, a lead in the game when Jameson is pitching. Somehow, Dansby hit a single, which scored Michael Conforto in at home base. Very lucky not to get tagged, but he did get in, which moved Pedro Ramirez to third, Dansby Swanson to second. At that point in time, there was 2 outs, so it wasn't crazy bad in terms of leaving 2 on base because there was obviously 1 runner. But then bottom of the second, so this was top of the second when Dansby ended up hitting that single to score someone. Bottom of the second, home run to Valdez, left center field. Home run, which scored 2 to Sean Ross. That made it 3-1 Pirates in the bottom of the second. Bottom of the third, Ryan Ahern hit a grand slam home run, which scored 4. So that's right. Jameson Talion ended up giving up 7 runs in 2 innings. 2 innings. So 7-1 ended up being in the bottom of the third. So great for the Cubs there. Top of the fourth, they ended up getting some runs back. Carson Kelly grounded out for the first out, but Nico Horner did score at home plate, and Michael Conforto did move to third position, third base, keep saying that, third base. Pedro Ramirez ended up hitting a single, which scored Michael Conforto, which made it 7-3. Then PCA hit a triple, which scored Pedro Ramirez, which made it 7-4 in the bottom of the 4th inning. Then the bottom of the 5th inning, Valdez hit a single, which scored Brandon Lowe, to make it 8-4. Rollerson ended up going in for that. So it wasn't completely on Jameson for that, but I think obviously Jameson did put him on base though, Brandon Lowe. So yeah, not ideal. And you can't really blame the bullpen when they only gave up 1 run since they actually started pitching, which was again in the bottom of the 5th inning. So, to get through 3 innings, because obviously we didn't score enough. We obviously scored in the top, and obviously they didn't need to play the extra, not the 9th inning, because we didn't end up getting in front. So it would only be 3 innings in terms of the bullpen. They only gave up 1 run the entire game compared to our starting pitcher, which gave up 7 fucking runs. Still pissed about that. Top of the 8th, Nico Horner hit a single, which scored Michael Bush, and Ian Happ went to second, made it 8-5. Then the top of the 9th, Sayer tried to keep us in it with a 2-run home run. Dansby Swanson ended up scoring as well with that home run to make it 8-7, and it was off the 1 out as well. So so we were one hit away with 1 out at that point in time. Obviously got out, including Ian Happ swinging and striking out from a ball that was outside the zone for the last strikeout of the game, which was fantastic. But yeah, Talion giving up 3 separate home runs, 1 being a 2-run home run, 1 being a single home run, and 1 being a fucking grand slam. And yeah, his win-loss record 2-6 for the year. It shows because he played like absolute dog shit. Again, yes, he got 3 strikeouts, but in the same vein, our transfer in Cavale, who come in for 2 innings after Rollerson gave up 1 run, ended up getting 3 strikeouts on his own in 2 innings. So literally, Talion played for 4 innings, Cavale played for 2 and got the same amount of strikeouts as their starting pitcher. they gave up 7 runs, and he didn't give up anything. And Trent Fortin, he obviously come back into this game. I'm surprised to see his name on there. He pitched for an inning and got 2 strikeouts himself. So literally played nowhere near as he played a quarter of the game compared to Jamison Talion. And obviously this is towards the end of the game, yes, but a guy that got hit in the leg and gave up obviously one of the wins obviously for Detroit last series, not on his own accord. Obviously he'd come off his leg, but he come in, could have been obviously put on IL, comes in for an inning and pitches and gets 2 strikeouts and doesn't give up a run, and yet the starting pitcher gives up 7. So the game, yes, we left 6 on base, but again it is fully on Jamison Talion. We hit 7 runs in the game, and you expect most teams should win from that, and we didn't. So it was a 2-1 series win, yes, but holy shit, we need to move Talion on from this team. I don't know what we have to do, but with that, Milwaukee ended up winning this morning as well, which didn't help us. So we're back to 7 games behind in the division as well, despite obviously them, Milwaukee losing the first game of the series that they played against the Colorado Rockies. So it's not ideal in terms of that. Obviously, Cubs still in the wild card spots at this point in time, but still on top is the Dodgers in the National League, 67-39. Then obviously not too far behind them is Milwaukee with 66-39 in terms of their win-loss record. And in fact, the Dodgers actually did lose today. They lost this morning, so wasn't ideal, and it was to a team that was very much lower on, I think it was the Cincinnati Reds, if memory serves me right. I think they were playing, no, it wasn't them. Let me have a look. Trying to remember who it was now. No, that's the Royals. The Mets. Sorry, excuse me, the Mets. Then Atlanta is in 3rd position with 62-43. Then obviously Chicago is in 4th position in the wild card race, 4.5 games inside the wild card with 59-46. Then Philly is a game and a half in. They're in 5th position with 56-49. And then rounding out the top 6 is the Arizona Diamondbacks with 55-51. With Pittsburgh obviously being a game behind with 54-52. And obviously the Washington Nationals as well, also behind by a game. Same rate as them, same win-loss record as Pittsburgh Pirates. And St. Louis a game and a half behind. Are they still playing right now? No. The only game that's playing right now is the Yankees and the Phillies are up at the moment. So the Phillies might move up another game if the result still stays the same. It's the top of the 6th inning at this point in time. So still 3 runs ahead in that. But yeah, St. Louis 1.5 games in behind the wild card. San Diego 2 behind. Miami 3 behind. Cincinnati Reds 5 behind. And in fact, actually, I think the Reds actually won that series 2-1 against the Cardinals as well, which is crazy to me. 10.5 games for the Giants, 11 games for the Mets, and 13.5 for the Rockies in their division, in their league. Obviously, heaps more in their division. Tampa Bay still in front in the American League, 62-43. Second position is the White Sox with 55-49. And in fact, they're still behind us in terms of the overall record of win-losses. But they have still got some games to play. 53-52 for the Rangers in 3rd position. 4th position, 6.5 games in, is the Yankees. Obviously, that could move back as well. With the loss today, they could move back to possibly 6 games or 5.5. The Boston Red Sox in 5th position with 1.5 games inside with 54-50 on their win-loss record. And then the Cleveland Guardians move into 6th position of that wildcard race with 54-53. with the Minnesota Twins being outside by 1 game with 53 and 54. Seattle Mariners 52 and 54, a game and a half out. Houston 2 games out. Baltimore Orioles 2.5. Then the Detroit Tigers 3.5. Guess you should say thank you to us, Tigers, for that. Toronto Blue Jays 5.5 out. The Royals 9 games out. Athletics also 9 games out. And the Angels at the bottom of the American League with 11.5 games out of the wild card spot. So, yeah. Ultimately, Jamison Talion gives up the game that could have given us a sweep and given us a lead in the season series against the Pirates. Obviously, that next Pirates series is obviously at Wrigley Field. I believe that's next month as well. No, sorry, I lie. Keep thinking that it is almost August, but it's not August at the moment. And it's not until September. That's September 12th, 13th, and 14th, where we play at home at Wrigley Field in that series. So we'll see how we do with that. But ultimately, big important series coming up. 4 games in St. Louis. This is the series that could break the division right open, or it could pretty much give it straight to the Brewers if we end up losing a whole bunch of these games, if we do get swept by the Cardinals. So hopefully not. But 4-game series obviously against St. Louis. And then right after that at home is 3 games against the Yankees at Wrigley Field. So that's going to be very, very interesting. And we'll see what happens with that when we get into the start of August. But obviously the focus is St. Louis and Missouri. In obviously St. Louis, 4-game series there, then obviously going back home after that to play against the Yankees. But 2-1 series win over the Pirates equals us in terms of the season series with 3 games left to play for the 2 sides. So I guess it's best let the best team win. So with all that said, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of How's My Team. This has been Mario Mantes 100. You guys have a great day night, and of course, take care.